the silent watchers. The observation deck of the Krillian surveillance vessel hummed with the steady rhythm of 1,000 monitoring systems, each one dedicated to cataloging the countless species scattered across the western spiral arm of the galaxy. Commander Rallis stood before the central display, her 4 eyes scanning the endless stream of data that flowed across the translucent screens. For 17 cycles she had served aboard the Eternal Observer, and in all that time, nothing had surprised her. The galaxy was predictable after all. Species rose, species fell, and the Krillian Empire watched it all with the patient detachment of gods observing insects. Captain Venn entered the observation deck with the slow, deliberate gait that his species was known for. The Krillians were an ancient race, tall and slender, with translucent skin that shimmered like mother-of-pearl under the ship's artificial lighting. They had been watching the galaxy for thousands of years, long before most species had even discovered fire. Their technology was unmatched, their knowledge vast, and their purpose singular: to observe, to catalog, and to ensure that no species grew too dangerous too quickly. It was a responsibility they took with the utmost seriousness. "Commander Rallis," Venn said, his voice carrying the melodic quality that all Krillians possessed. "I understand you flagged a new species for review." Rallis turned to face her captain, her expression unreadable. "Yes, Captain. System designation Sol 3. The inhabitants call their planet Earth. We discovered them during a routine sweep of unexplored systems in Sector 447. They weren't on any of our previous scans because, frankly, we didn't think to look that far out into the sparse regions. The system is unremarkable, a single yellow star with several planetary bodies. Only one supports complex life." Venn moved closer to the display, his interest piqued despite himself. In all his years of service, truly new species were becoming increasingly rare. Most had already been catalogued by previous generations of observers. What makes them notable enough to flag? Rallis gestured to the screen and images began to appear. Bipedal creatures standing upright on 2 legs with 2 arms and a single head. They had skin that ranged from dark brown to pale pink, with hair growing from their heads in various colors and styles. They call themselves humans. Bipedal, mammalian, carbon-based. On the surface they appear entirely unremarkable. Their technology level is primitive. They've barely left their own planet, with only a few small stations orbiting their world and a single outpost on their nearest celestial neighbor. Then why the flag? Venn asked, though he had a feeling he already knew the answer. Rallis was too experienced to waste his time with truly mundane species. "Their behavior patterns don't match any known classification," Rallis explained, pulling up more detailed data. "We've observed them for 3 full rotations now, and every analysis we run comes back contradictory. By all standard metrics they should be classified as a prey species. They lack natural weapons, their bodies are fragile compared to most sapient species, and they have no specialized defensive adaptations. They should be cautious, communal, focused on survival and reproduction." "But they're not," Venn said, reading the data himself now. "No, Captain, they're not. They display aggression levels consistent with apex predators. They're territorial, competitive, and they engage in recreational combat for entertainment. But at the same time, they show cooperation and empathy on scales we typically only see in prey species. They form massive social groups, they create art, they care for their sick and elderly long past the point of biological usefulness. They're contradictions wrapped in contradictions." Venn studied the images more carefully. The humans were shown in various activities, building towering structures that reached toward their sky, engaged in complex social rituals, competing in physical contests, creating music and visual art. In one image, a human was shown carefully tending to an injured creature of another species, a small furry quadruped. In another, humans were shown in organized combat, wearing protective gear and carrying weapons. "Have they detected our observation drones?" Venn asked. "No, Captain. Our stealth technology is far beyond their current detection capabilities. They have no idea we're watching them." Rallis paused, then added, "Though they do seem to suspect they're not alone in the universe. They've been broadcasting signals into space for several of their decades now, and they've sent primitive probes to the edge of their solar system. They're actively looking for other intelligent life." "Curious," Venn mused. "Most species at their technological level are focused entirely on their own world, on survival and expansion within their own system. They're looking outward already?" "Yes, and that's not the only peculiarity. Their advancement rate is unprecedented. 300 of their years ago, they were still using animal-powered transportation and hadn't even discovered electricity. Now they have nuclear technology, computers, and they're on the verge of developing faster-than-light theory, even if their engineering can't match their mathematics yet. Ven felt a stirring of something he hadn't experienced in many cycles: concern. That's an alarming rate of progression. Most species take 10,000 years to move from primitive to spacefaring. You're saying these humans might do it in 500? Possibly less, Captain. And there's something else. Rallis pulled up a new set of data, this one showing historical records of the human planet. They're survivors. Their planet has thrown everything at them: ice ages, volcanic eruptions, asteroid impacts, plagues, and they just keep going. More than that, they thrive. When their environment tries to kill them, they adapt and come back stronger. They've survived 5 major extinction events on their planet, and each time their species has not only survived but expanded. Ven was silent for a long moment, processing this information. In all his years of observation, he had seen countless species rise and fall. Some destroyed themselves through war or environmental collapse. Others stagnated, never quite making the leap to the stars. But a species that adapted this quickly, that survived this consistently, that was both predator and prey, competitor and cooperator, that was something new. "What's your recommendation, Commander?" he finally asked. Rallis hesitated, which was unusual for her. "I'm uncertain, Captain. By standard protocol, we should classify them as level 3 civilization. Primitive but advancing. We would continue observation and intervene only if they pose a threat to themselves or others. But something tells me that classification might be inadequate." "Inadequate how?" "I think we might be underestimating them, Captain. Every model we run suggests they should have destroyed themselves by now. They have weapons capable of rendering their entire planet uninhabitable, and they've come close to using them several times. By all rights, they should be extinct. But they're not. They keep pulling back from the brink. They keep finding ways to cooperate just enough to survive. It's as if they're aware of their own destructive potential and are constantly fighting against it." Ven turned away from the display, his mind working through the implications. "Continue the observation. I want hourly reports on their activities. And Commander, increase the number of surveillance drones. I want eyes on their military installations, their research facilities, and their space stations. If these humans are as unpredictable as you suggest, I want to be prepared." "Yes, Captain," Rallis acknowledged. "There's one more thing. We detected some unusual activity near their Mars outpost 3 cycles ago. We're still analyzing the data, but it appears they might have discovered something there. Something they're keeping very quiet about." "What kind of something?" "We're not certain yet. Our drones detected a massive energy surge, followed by a complete communications blackout from the facility for nearly 2 of their days. When communications resumed, the humans had tripled their security presence at the outpost. Whatever they found, they're taking it very seriously." Ven felt that stirring of concern grow stronger. "Send a probe to investigate. And Rallis, do it quietly. If these humans are as perceptive as you suggest, I don't want to risk detection." "Not yet." As Rallis moved to carry out his orders, Ven returned his attention to the display. The images of humans continued to scroll past. Laughing, fighting, building, destroying, creating, loving. They were a mess of contradictions, a species that shouldn't exist according to all known models of sapient development. And yet here they were, standing on the edge of their world, looking up at the stars with something that looked disturbingly like hunger. For the first time in 17 cycles, Commander Rallis felt something she had almost forgotten: the cold touch of uncertainty. And in the vast, ordered universe of the Krillian Empire, uncertainty was the most dangerous thing of all. When prey becomes predator. The probe reached Mars in silence, slipping through the thin atmosphere like a ghost. Commander Rallis watched the feed from her station, her 4 eyes narrowing as the human outpost came into view. The facility was larger than their previous scans had indicated, much larger. What had been reported as a small research station now sprawled across the rust-colored surface like a metallic city, with dozens of structures connected by enclosed corridors and what appeared to be underground tunnels extending deep into the Martian soil. Captain Ven stood beside her, his usual calm demeanor showing the first signs of strain. "How long has this expansion been underway?" "According to our records, the original facility was established 8 of their years ago with a crew of 12. Current estimates put the population at over 300, possibly more underground." Rallis manipulated the controls, sending the probe closer. "Captain, they've built this in less than a decade. The engineering alone should have taken them 50 years with their current technology level." "Unless their current technology level isn't what we thought it was," Ven said quietly. The probe descended toward the central structure, its sensors reaching out to penetrate the walls and scan the interior. What they found made both Krillians fall silent. The facility wasn't just a research station. It was a manufacturing complex, a military installation, and something else entirely. Banks of computers processed data at speeds that should have been impossible for human technology. Assembly lines produced components that looked disturbingly advanced. And in the deepest chamber, surrounded by security measures that would have impressed even the Krillian Empire, was something that made Rallis's blood run cold. "Is that?" she began but couldn't finish the sentence. "A gateway," Ven completed, his voice barely above a whisper. "They've built a spatial gateway." The structure dominated the underground chamber, a massive ring of metal and energy that pulsed with a light that seemed to exist outside normal space. The technology required to create such a thing was centuries beyond what humanity should have possessed. The Krillian Empire themselves had only mastered gateway technology 5,000 years ago, and it had taken them millennia of research and development. Yet here it stood, built by a species that had barely left their own planet. "How is this possible?" Rallis demanded. "Our observations showed no indication they were even close to understanding the principles of spatial manipulation. They were still using chemical rockets for space travel." "Pull up the historical data," Ven ordered. "Show me everything we recorded from the energy surge 3 cycles ago." The display shifted, showing the Mars facility as it had been 3 cycles earlier. The complex was smaller then, about half its current size. The probe's sensors had detected normal human activity. Research, mining operations, basic construction. Then, at timestamp 4477.3, everything changed. A massive energy signature erupted from one of the underground chambers, so powerful that it temporarily disrupted the probe systems. When the sensors came back online, the facility had gone dark. "Enhance that section," Ven commanded. Before the surge. What were they doing in that chamber? Rallis worked the controls and the image zoomed in. The chamber had been an excavation site, with humans using drilling equipment to bore into the Martian bedrock. Then one of the workers had stopped, calling others over. They had found something, a metallic object embedded in the rock. As they carefully extracted it, the object began to glow. "They found something," Rallis breathed. "Something that was already here. On Mars." "Not human technology," Ven said. "Someone else was here before them. Long before them." The implications crashed over them like a wave. Mars had been visited before, possibly millions of years ago, and something had been left behind. Something the humans had now found and, impossibly, managed to activate and reverse engineer in just 3 cycles. The speed of their adaptation was beyond anything the Krillian Empire had ever encountered. "Captain, we need to report this immediately," Rallis said, but Ven raised a hand. "Wait. Keep watching." The recording continued. After the blackout, the facility came back online, but something had changed. The humans moved with purpose now, with urgency. They expanded the facility at an incredible rate, working in shifts around the clock. And in the deep chamber, they had begun constructing the gateway, using principles they couldn't possibly understand but somehow did. "They reverse-engineered ancient technology in 3 cycles," Rallis said, her voice filled with disbelief. "Technology that took us millennia to develop, and they cracked it in 3 cycles. "Not just cracked it," Ven corrected. "Improved it. Look at the energy signature. Their gateway is more efficient than ours." Rallis checked the readings and felt her heart skip a beat. He was right. The human gateway was consuming 30% less power than a Krillian gateway of equivalent size, and the spatial distortion was cleaner, more stable. They hadn't just copied ancient technology. They had made it better. "What are they?" Rallis whispered. "What kind of species can do this?" Before Ven could answer, alarms began screaming across the observation deck. The probe's stealth field was failing. No, not failing. It was being actively disrupted by a scanning beam originating from the Mars facility. The humans had detected them. "Impossible," Rallis said, her hands flying across the controls. "Our stealth technology is generations ahead of theirs. They shouldn't even know to look for us, let alone have the means to detect us." "Recall the probe," Ven ordered. "Now." But it was too late. The scanning beam locked onto the probe, and suddenly the display filled with the image of a human face. A woman, with dark skin and eyes that held an intelligence that seemed to look directly through the screen and into their souls. She was young by human standards, perhaps 30 of their years, with her hair pulled back in a practical style. Behind her, Rallis could see other humans working at consoles, their expressions focused and alert. "Greetings," the woman said in perfect Krillian, her accent flawless. I am Dr. Sarah Chin, Director of the Mars Advanced Research Facility. We've been expecting you. Rallis and Ven exchanged shocked glances. She was speaking Krillian. Perfect Krillian. A language that shouldn't exist in any human database. How? Rallis began, but Dr. Chin smiled. How do we speak your language? How did we detect your probe? How did we build a gateway in 3 cycles? She leaned forward slightly. The same way we've survived 5 extinction events on our planet. The same way we went from horses to spacecraft in 300 years. We adapt. We learn. We overcome. It's what we do. Captain Ven stepped forward, his composure returning. Dr. Chin, I am Captain Ven of the Krillian observation vessel Eternal Observer. Your species was under routine surveillance as per standard protocols for primitive civilizations. Your advancement rate has been deemed unusual and potentially concerning. Potentially concerning, Dr. Chin repeated, and there was something in her tone that made it sound like a threat. Captain Ven, let me be clear. We know you've been watching us for 3 cycles. We've known since the day you arrived. We let you watch because we wanted to understand who you were, what you wanted, and whether you posed a threat to humanity. You let us watch? Rallis couldn't keep the disbelief from her voice. Our surveillance technology is undetectable. To most species, perhaps. But we're not most species, Commander. We're humans. We're the species that turned wolves into companions, that turned deserts into gardens, that looked at the stars and decided they were ours to reach. Your stealth technology is impressive, but it still operates on physical principles. And if it's physical, we can detect it, understand it, and counter it. Ven felt the situation slipping away from him. Dr. Chin, the object you found on Mars. It was left by an ancient civilization, one that existed millions of years before humanity evolved. That technology is dangerous in inexperienced hands. Inexperienced? Dr. Chen's expression hardened. Captain, in the 3 cycles since we found that artifact, we've not only activated it but improved upon its design. We've decoded a language that predates your empire by epochs. We've unlocked principles of physics that will revolutionize space travel. And we've done it all while maintaining peace on our homeworld. Don't lecture us about experience. You improved on ancient technology? Rallis couldn't hide her shock. That's impossible. Impossible is a word humans stopped believing in when we first looked up at the stars, Dr. Chin said. The artifact contained information, vast amounts of it. Star charts, technical specifications, and something else. A warning. A warning about a threat that's coming, something the ancient civilization couldn't stop. But they left breadcrumbs, hoping someone would find them and finish what they started. Ven felt ice spreading through his veins. What kind of threat? The kind that ends civilizations, Captain. The kind that has been moving through this galaxy for millions of years, consuming everything in its path. The kind that your empire has been very carefully pretending doesn't exist. Dr. Chen's eyes blazed with intensity. The ancient ones called it the Void Swarm. And according to the data we've decrypted, it's headed this way. It'll reach the outer colonies of your empire in less than 20 cycles. The observation deck fell silent. Rallis pulled up star charts, her hands trembling. If what Dr. Chin was saying was true, if the Void Swarm was real and heading toward Krillian space, then everything was about to change. The Empire had legends of such a thing, ancient stories dismissed as myths. A force that consumed entire star systems, leaving nothing but empty space in its wake. You're lying, Rallis said, but her voice lacked conviction. Am I? Check your own archives, Commander. Not the public ones. The restricted ones, the ones your leadership doesn't want ordinary citizens to know about. The ones that talk about entire sectors going dark, about colonies that stopped responding, about survey ships that found systems stripped of all life. Check those archives and tell me I'm lying. Ven stood motionless, his mind racing. If the humans were telling the truth, if the Void Swarm was real and approaching, then the galaxy needed to prepare. But more than that, they needed allies. Allies who could adapt, who could innovate, who could take ancient technology and make it better in just 3 cycles. Why are you telling us this? He finally asked. Dr. Chen's expression softened slightly. Because when we decoded that warning, we realized something. The ancient civilization that left it behind, they were watchers too. Just like you. They spent millennia observing, cataloging, maintaining order. And when the Void Swarm came, they weren't ready. They couldn't adapt fast enough. They couldn't change from watchers to warriors in time to save themselves. She leaned forward, her eyes locking onto Ven's. Humanity doesn't have that problem, Captain. We've been warriors since the day we climbed down from the trees. We've fought for every inch of progress, every moment of peace, every day of survival. And now we're offering the Krillian Empire a choice. You can keep watching from the shadows, cataloging our species as primitive and concerning. Or you can accept that the prey you've been observing just became the predator this galaxy needs. The weight of her words hung in the air between them. Ven looked at the young human woman on the screen, at the determination in her eyes, at the absolute confidence in her bearing. She wasn't asking for help. She was offering it. And in that moment he understood what Rallis had meant about contradictions. Humans were prey and predator, peaceful and warlike, cooperative and competitive. They were survivors, adapters, innovators. They were exactly what the galaxy needed, even if it didn't know it yet. I'll need to consult with the Empire Council, Ven said slowly. You do that, Captain. But do it quickly. The Void Swarm won't wait for bureaucracy. And neither will we. With or without your empire, humanity is going to face what's coming. We'd prefer to have allies. But make no mistake, we will fight. Because that's what humans do. We survive. We adapt. And we never ever give up. The transmission ended, leaving Ven and Rallis staring at a blank screen. The observation deck was silent except for the steady hum of the monitoring systems. Finally Rallis spoke. Captain, what have we discovered? Ven thought about the question, about the bipedal creatures who had gone from primitive to advanced in the blink of an eye, who had found ancient technology and made it better, who looked at an approaching apocalypse and saw only another challenge to overcome. We've discovered, he said quietly, that perhaps we've been observing the wrong species all along. Perhaps the question isn't whether humanity will survive. Perhaps the question is whether the rest of the galaxy will survive them.